Hey traders, welcome back to Alareso Capital. On today's video, we're gonna go through the weekly watch list and we're also gonna take a look at the market. Remember guys that this video is for informational purposes only, is based just on my personal opinion and is not financial advice. And also guys, if at any point of this video you find value, remember to subscribe to the channel. So let's jump here into the charts. It has been a crazy week, pretty volatile week. We're gonna cover what we were talking about the SPX, SMH last week. But before we do that, I do wanna take a look at some of these crypto names that we were talking about last week. Remember guys that I was talking about some interesting patterns in the crypto world, and we are having some really nice momentum picking up in everything that is related to Bitcoin. So let's take a look at Bitcoin right here. So pretty intense move to the downside. But what I really like about this is that we undercutted this 200 daily moving average. And what Bitcoin did, it formed a really nice base below that moving average. So that's why it's really important. Of course, it's really important to focus on the general trend of an asset. But many times it's also important to analyze the price action that is happening at certain levels. So one of the main reasons that we were mentioning the stocks related to Bitcoin was because of this pattern, right? Remember that Bitcoin was making those higher highs, which means that sellers are losing a little bit of power as the stock or the asset that you are analyzing is moving toward that resistance point. So that's what happened in Bitcoin. And of course, we had a really nice rally, a really nice move to the upside. And you can see right here that we reclaimed that 50 daily moving average. Now, the question is what is going to happen with Bitcoin? I do think that there are going to be more opportunities in this sector of the market. So one of the main things that I'm going to be watching for the coming weeks, perhaps we get it next week, it's going to be a reversal. Well, not a reversal, but a retracement back into these moving averages. Perhaps we're going to be lucky enough to get a pullback back into that 21 exponential moving average. I did anchor a VWAP from this low right here, and you can see right here that the VWAP is trading somewhere around 63,000. So if we happen, right, anything can happen. But if we happen to get a little bit of a pullback and this anchor VWAP coincides with that 50 daily moving average, perhaps the 21 exponential will coincide with that level as well. I do think that Bitcoin is going to be a really nice trade, at least for a test of these highs, somewhere around 74,000. And then, of course, my favorite name is going to be Coin. Remember, guys, that we were talking about Coin. I did had a really nice trade at the beginning of the week. Remember, guys, that we were talking about this really nice double bottom that Coin was forming. Remember that I mentioned the divergence in momentum. I mentioned this really nice hammer candle that we had. And you can see right here that Coin held that anchor VWAP zone pretty nicely. And then we had a really nice breakout. We did had an opportunity to get into Coin once again at that anchor VWAP from this low right here. You can see how powerful these levels are. And now Coin is just continuing to go higher. I do expect that we're probably going to see a little bit of resistance around this 260. If we happen to get a handle, that's going to be really nice. But we do have earnings. But this is definitely a stock that I'm going to be watching. And then I do like Mara. Mara continues to look really good. Remember, guys, that we were talking about this really strong level of resistance. We finally got that breakout. And you can see right here that Mara is just forming a really nice flag. I do see some continuation here. Are we going to get that continuation next week? Perhaps. Just remember that Mara tends to be a really explosive stock, but the kind of the personality of this stock, if you see, we get these really nice moves to the upside and then we get a dump. We get some really nice movement to the upside, then we get a dump. So just remember, if you trade Mara, just make sure to take some profits because moves tend to be really volatile. And then another name that I'm watching is going to be MSTR, which is MicroStrategy. And wow, I didn't saw this one last week. I wasn't even paying attention to this name, but this is a really nice gap to the upside. You can see right here that we held that anchor VWAP gap, anchor from the day before the gap. That's a really powerful place to put your anchor VWAPs. And you can see right here that we tested that anchor VWAP and now we're having some continuation. Let's see. Perhaps we're just breaking out. Perhaps we're gonna find a little bit of resistance here. But MSTR is a really nice stock to trade, especially when it's related to Bitcoin movements. So that's gonna be kind of the one of the main sectors I'm gonna be watching. But let's talk about the market and what happened last week. I do think that is pretty interesting. But what I want to remember and remind you guys is that so far, this is just a normal retracement in the market, in my opinion. And the main reason that I say that this for now is just a normal retracement, a normal pullback, and has a low probability of converting into a correction is because the equal weighted S&P is looking pretty bullish, right? Usually when you get a correction, you will get a you will get kind of the same structure in both the equal weight and on the S&P 500, right? Most of the time, if you're gonna have like a strong correction, you're gonna need both sides of the market, right? You're most likely not gonna get a correction if it's just the mega caps. So even in the rally that we had, it was just not only the mega caps. Perhaps it was not the small caps, but we did had some mid cap exposure and mid cap participation, because you can see right here that the RSP, which is most of the stocks in the S&P 500, also had a rally. And the moment that we had that correction, you can see that the RSP also participated in the correction that we had on April, which was a pretty substantial move to the downside. And then you can see right here that on the move to the upside, we did have participation on the RSP. And the last time that we were just having a little bit of more action in the S&P 500, the RSP was not breaking down. It was just basing. And you can see right now that we had some really nice moves to the upside in the equal weight. And what is happening right now is just a simple pullback, in my opinion, back into this 8 exponential moving average. You can also see that if you anchor a VWAP from this low, you're just basically retesting that. And that tends to be a really nice spot to start looking for some possible participation from people that miss the move, because this is the average price paid from every participant from this low right here. So it tends to be a really strong level of support, and that is one of the reasons which I think that we're most likely gonna see. Perhaps we're gonna see a little bit of chop on the SPX, but I do think that we're gonna see some rotation, a continuation back into some other sectors of the market. I do like the IWM a lot. Basically, if you see the IWM, I actually think that the IWM is a buy right here. If you anchor a VWAP from the day before the announcement that we had, you can see right here that we're just pulling back into that level. That also coincides with the 21 exponential moving average. So perhaps we're gonna see a little bit of a base forming right here on the IWM, but I do think that we're gonna see continuation to the upside. Of course, this thesis will change if the IWM also breaks to the downside, right? If we see the IWM also breaking to the downside, if we also see the RSP also breaking to the downside, then we're going to have more participation and a possible continuation to the downside. But for now, I do think that this is just probably going to be a buy the dip opportunity. But of course, we want to see in which sectors of the market we participate. If we take a look at the SMH, right? The SMH, we were talking, right? Remember that I was thinking that a double top was pretty unlikely, but you can see right here that I was wrong, and the SMH actually came all the way to this 50 daily moving average. Now the question is if we're gonna hold this anchor VWAP from this level right here. We also do have another level. If we anchor a VWAP right here, you can see that we are pretty close to this low anchor VWAP. So I would expect that level to act as support. But as for now, the semis, you can see that the semis are kind of the lagging sector in the rotation that we're seeing right now. So it makes sense. The semis have been some of the strongest sectors in the market, if not the strongest one. But we do have to be aware of what we want to buy. In terms of the indexes, I already showed you the IWM. I do like the DIA. I do think that we're gonna see some more action in the financials, and this is just a really nice pullback back into this average price pay, this anchor VWAP. This was a really nice breakout, and now we're just back to the levels from which we broke out. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see continuation in the DIA. So I do think that the market is bullish. We just have to be pretty aware of where do we want to position ourselves. And finally, let's take a look at the Qs, and I also want to take a quick look at the VIX. The Qs, you can see right here, really nice pullback. Are we going to see this 50? Most likely, right? You can see right here that we do have a gap that continues to be open. Are we going to pull back all the way to fill that gap? That's a strong possibility. You can see that momentum in the short term is pretty negative, but momentum in the long term continues to be positive, which most of the times ends up being just a pullback. Then we see a little bit of basing, and then usually we tend to see a continuation to the upside. But of course, that could change if we see some of those equal weights starting to pull back as well. And finally, let's take a look at the VIX. And I don't know why we had this pretty wild candle on Friday. I don't know if that is just a glitch, if that happened. But what I want to take a look at is that we're just coming into this very important level of resistance. I do think that there's a high probability that we see resistance in the VIX somewhere around 17. This was a really nice spike, really bullish spike in the VIX, in terms, right, of course, of the VIX, not the market. But I do think that perhaps we're going to form a little bit of a range here. Are we just going to trade here and then we'll see what happens? But I do think that we are starting to see a little bit of extreme action in volatility. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have a bounce, right? So the main focus for next week is going to be, are we going to get a bounce or are we going to continue to see a sell-off? I'm leaning a little bit more into the bounce, into the bouncing opinion, but of course anything can happen in the market. And if we happen to get that bounce, I do think that crypto is going to be some of the best place to look for opportunities. And then of course the financials, I do think that we're going to see some opportunities there. Also XBI, which is the biotechs, right? Remember that biotechs are a really important component of the IWM. I do think that we're starting to see some really nice pullback action and perhaps an opportunity. You can see that this is a really small candle, really small volume, which usually suggests that we're going to see a continuation in biotech, and that's going to be beneficial for the IWM as well. So that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope that you have an amazing weekend, and I will see you on future videos. Take care, and bye-bye.